Hi and moin, how we say in Hamburg. This is going to be a long form demo of our tool Heisenware. We will create an app together, collect data from different data sources, combine this data and visualize it, and finally deploy an app. So let's start. What you can see here is our app manager, and first thing I'm going to do is create a new app. It's called app 20. I would like to call it demo. Add an icon first of all. I have a nice Heisenware icon here. Of course, you can add your own icon for your app. Once this is uploaded, I will already start the app builder, which is the actual tool where you build logic, your front end, and everything else. So this is how it looks in the beginning. So what I do first is a HTTP GET request. So we go to HTTP and take a GET node. And on the canvas, I can place it wherever I want. And I will add a URL, which is returning a random number. So you can also use this API. But be aware, don't use it too often. They will block you for some time. However, what we get is a random number. In this case, it's a 99. And using these parameters here, I can, for example, say, give me something between 50 and 100, and give me 5 numbers, for example. There you go. What you get as a return value is an array of numbers between 50 and 100. So first data source is connected. All right, now that we have this array, we like to build an average out of it. This is just an example, and I can use a modifier for that. So you just click the little plus, and then you can choose between JSONata modifier or a JavaScript expression. However, I'm using JSONata in this example. What I want is an average. So I'm typing the function for creating the average out of the array. We can address the array using the dollar sign here. And now I trigger the function again. And what you see is the average of these 5 numbers within the array. Okay, this is it for the first data source. I leave it as it is and continue with the second one. And as the second data source, I like to use OPC-UA. It's a protocol commonly used in manufacturing environments. What you typically have is a OPC-UA server. And to connect to the server, we first need to create an OPC-UA client. So I can do it with this create function or the create node here. And I will just call it demo. And create. And once I've done this, you can see the client here with all the nodes belonging to this very client. So now I'm taking a connect node and connect to this OPC-UA server. It's again something which is available on the internet. So you can use it in your own Heisenware account yourself and basically copy what I'm doing. So let's connect. It's true, it's connected. Just to show you, we also have an is connected node. So you can check, yes, we are actually connected. So far, so good. Now I'm cleaning up a little bit, just putting it here and continue with the read node or read node function. OPC-UA has an address base. You can either use node IDs or browse paths to read data from an OPC-UA server. And what I have is already a node ID prepared. You can also browse the full OPC-UA server. However, I already know that we get value out of this one. So let's see what we get. And you can see that we get an object with many, many things in there. However, the actual value is here. This is what we want. See, when I trigger it again, getting another value. So now we need to extract this value out of the big object. And for that, I'm using a JSONata modifier again, this time called value. So what we are doing is we get into the object value, and on the level beneath, we get also the value. And let me trigger it. And as you can see, we're extracting the 159. All right, so I've got my two numbers that I want to work with. It's the average of this array, and it's the value coming from this node ID. Now, let me first clean up the board a little bit. So I'm taking this one here. And of course, I can zoom a bit out so it's easier to see. And now I place them next to each other, because what I'm doing now is I'm combining these two numbers. For that, I scroll down to the utilities section, and there we have basic functions. And one of our basic functions is the combine function. So I drag it onto the canvas, and the first argument of my combine function is the 159. And as you can see, there is now an arrow indicating the data flow. And the second value we want to have in this combine function is the average of the array here. So I zoom out a bit, and now I take it and put it on argument 2 of the combine function. There you go. Very nice. And I could also place it here. Doesn't really matter. So now I have my two values combined. Let's see what happens if I trigger this combine function. I'm getting an array again. So what I want is, I want now a sum. This is just an example. And again, I can use a modifier. And this time, the sum function provided by JSONata. Very similar to the average function. There you go. This is now the sum of these two values. Now the question is, when is this number created? Because currently I'm using the manual trigger here, but this is something you can only use during build time of your app. However, you want it to be triggered during runtime of the final deployed app. So let's configure the triggers together. Let's start with the read node. I want to read the node every 10 seconds, let's say. I can freely define how often and how fast, but in my example now 10 seconds is enough. And now I need more space here. And with the HTTP GET node, I will also configure it to every 10 seconds. So when we start the app now, we get every 10 seconds a new value. So let's make sure we have enough space here. We don't need this anymore. And continue. So now every 10 seconds we get new values, and they are automatically transferred into the combine function. And the combine function should be triggered whenever there is a new value. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the input and putting it onto the trigger, and I'm doing the same with the second input. And as you can see, on input change, this function is triggered. And the same goes for the second input. Let's see if our logic is working. For that, I'm starting the test mode. And now it was already triggered. As you can see, the value is now 111. And I'm waiting a little bit, 10 seconds in this case, to see the next value. There you go. It's now triggered right after each other, because we have actually two values and they trigger the function 2 times. Maybe this is not what we want, so maybe we get rid of one of these triggers here. Okay, this is a live value we're going to visualize in a second. However, we also want to visualize historic data. But to create historic data, we would need a recorder. So let's add a recorder here. The recorder is recording this data point in an InfluxDB time series. And all you have to do is add the recorder, configure it so it collects or records the data for 1 hour and then starts to overwrite. And then I'm giving it a name. I could just call it demo data. And then I can go into the test mode again and just wait, and every 10 seconds a value is recorded into this very time series called demo data. It takes a bit long, but it's fine for our example now. And I will keep the test mode on so we are constantly collecting data. So let's continue with the front end. And for the front end, now I need to stop because we need to continue building. For the front end, or the UI, the user interface of our app, we first want to have a nice logo. So of course, it's a Heisenware logo in this case. And now what I'm doing is I want to visualize this live data here. So let's pick a display widget. As you can see, you have many widgets, many different diagrams, how to visualize data. However, I just want a circular gauge. Click the circular gauge, click in the UI again, and there is my circular gauge. And let's configure it a little bit. The number is, as you've seen, something between 100 and 500, let's say. So let's configure the gauge so it shows numbers between 100 and 500. Change a bit the font size, and what I could also do is add color sections, for example. So let's say between 100 and 250, it's red, and between 250 and 500, it's green. All right. Now to connect backend logic with your user interface, you again can use drag and drop. So you just take the value, drag and drop it onto the circular gauge, and you already see a result. And let me start the test mode again. Wait a little bit. It's 10 seconds again, but I think we can take the time in this long form demo. And there's our new value, and it's shown and indicated within the circular gauge. So this was the live data part of it. Let's have a look at the historic data that we are already recording in our demo data time series. And in order to read the time series, what we can do is use a read from InfluxDB function. We can get it from here. So the internal influx, there's a read function, or it's a shortcut, just click here, and then it's created somewhere on the board. And there's another one that we don't need, so get rid of it. So this is my read function, and it's already pre-configured using the configuration that is needed in order to read the data. And the tail is currently at 100. We may lower it to 10 data points and we trigger this one. And as you can see, so far we only have 7 data points in there. It's always a timestamp and a value, which is recorded from here. Okay. Next step is visualizing this historic data. For that, I'm creating a new page. So our app cannot just have one page, but as many pages as you want. So I'm creating a new page, and you can see that a menu is automatically created for you. Currently, it's just called page 1 and page 2. I like to call them live data and history. I can choose an icon for that. So let's pick the circle info here. And for the historic data, I will use a chart icon. All right, so you can see the updated menu here. Let's move on with visualizing the historic data. So I go to the second page and pick another display widget. This time I'm using a chart. And again, click, click. Here it is. And now I can drag and drop the array onto the chart, and it automatically creates the chart for you. And the same way as we have configured the circular gauge on the first page, we could configure the chart using these icons here in the top bar. However, this is something I will skip now. So the question is, how often do we read the data now from the Influx database? This is something I would like to let the user decide. So I'm taking a trigger widget button, put the button here and just connect the trigger of the read function with the button. So which basically means whenever we click the button, this read function reads from the InfluxDB and then visualizes new data. So let's see if it works. Start the test mode again. Our flow is working, so we should get new data in a couple of seconds. There you go. And now I could trigger it, and this is an updated chart. Now let's talk a little bit about the user interface. Of course, you cannot just build for the mobile phone or the smartphone. You can build for tablet and for desktop at the same time. Heisenware means always progressive web apps, and they run on any device, on any operating system. So on my desktop, I have lots of space, so I can make it way bigger. And with these helper lines, I can, in this case, arrange it nicely. Let's see it on the first page. This can also become a bit bigger. And the phone is still the same as before. So for each screen, you can define your user interface individually. Another thing I would like to show you when it comes to the user interface is our included theming. So when I click here on theme editing, the theme editor opens, and in here I can choose between a base theme. So I will go with material and choose my favorite theme. It can be a dark theme or a light theme. And if I'm happy with this one, I will choose the purple one, or I can even adjust further using my own company colors. So let's click apply and go back to the app. And as you can see, the button, for example, has changed its color. Now I'm happy with my very first app, and I'm going to deploy it now. For that, I'm just clicking on deploy, and now I could scan the QR code using my smartphone to get the app on my phone. It opens in the browser, or I just click the URL here to see the desktop version of my app. And now we wait 10 seconds to get new results, because we trigger the HTTP and we trigger the OPC every 10 seconds. As you've seen, it's already moving a little bit. Let's wait another 10 seconds. And there you go. And with this one here, you could even install it on your computer or on your phone. I don't do this now. And if you look on the history page, there's no data yet because we still need to trigger, and I will do it now. And here comes my data. This was a long-form demo of Heisenware. I hope you enjoyed it. Of course, there's way more things you can do with Heisenware. However, this was just about the first impression. If you have any questions, if you want to rebuild this thing, the link is in the video notes, in the video comment section to our tutorial, so you can rebuild it in your own Heisenware account. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video.